What's up everyone, Michael aka Spirit here with an impressions review for Raining Blobs, a competitive arcade puzzle game. I don't really know how to describe it. If you've ever played Puyo or Angry Bean Machine, then you don't know exactly what this is. This game was rather exciting to me because not many games come out in this genre, and I saw it and I'm like, oh my god, that's like Puyo, and I was like really excited because I don't think they have those games on PC. I guess Angry Bean Machine's on PC, but anyways, this game does a few things that are pretty meta, but it does change the formula like slightly. It has a few options and stuff like that that are quite interesting. And it's got a nice little look to it as well. Real quick, we're going to go ahead and look at the options because there's not very many of them. Right here at the top is going to be your how to play. It's going to bring up this giant text block that just pretty much describes the game. I would like to see some in-game type tutorial, but I guess this works for how simple the game is. It is worth reading if you have never played this type of game before. Then you have controls. Now you'll notice you actually have up to 2 players on the keyboard and then up to 8 on the gamepad. So you can actually have up to 8 players total on this game in general, which is actually pretty cool. And you can rebind these whatever you want. So if I go ahead and click on this one, it's like press up, press left, press down, press right, press start, press A, press B. And boom, you got your thing. And the gamepads are also rebindable as well. I don't have a gamepad plugged in, so I can't really show you, but yeah, you can end up rebinding them as well. One thing I do want to mention about the gamepads is that some drivers only support up to 4 gamepads, and I don't know how many people have up to 6 gamepads just kind of laying around. So having 8 players locally play a game might be sort of difficult. I guess you need some sort of special setup, but it's still pretty cool nonetheless. I wish they would have it so that you could have more players on the keyboard, because then I would be able to be like, hey, let's have, 3 on here and stuff like that. But it's pretty rare that you'll get 8 people sitting around a computer anyway, so I guess that's not too big of a deal, but it would be nice to see workarounds to that. Then you got your music and your sound effects volume. Then you got windowed mode, which is going to be your full screen and windowed. This game runs in the pseudo full screen mode, so it's full screen when you're in the game, but if you alt tab, it seems to go to borderless, which is nice, but it screws with people's recording sometimes, so be careful with that. Then you got your game zoom. This is going to change your board size. I like to keep it at maximum just so everything is as easy to see as possible. Then you got your colorblind mode. Super awesome to see this since this game relies heavily on color, and we'll see that when we get in game. This makes it so it shows those shapes, and it just makes it easier to see if you're colorblind. I'm not colorblind, so I don't really know, so I could be lying completely. But yeah, it's really good that they have that. And then they have board shake, which we'll see that in game. And then you have the credits. So, hey, we'll check those out when we're doing the end of it. Anyways, let's go ahead and go in game. Now, there's 2 modes here that it shows. Now, your tournament is going to be your basically single player mode, to where you're going to be going against NPCs of increasing difficulty as you progress. We're not going to do that one in here real quick. We're going to go ahead and go to arcade so that we can customize it. Now, your game speed, easy, normal, or hard. I'm going to do normal because that's how I am. I could do hard, but I'm also recording. I'm going to go ahead and pick this character. So here's your character select, and you can actually select a team. This game actually features teams and stuff like that too. I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, I'm going to go ahead and add an NPC because this game advertises as a competitive game. And so I'm going to end adding competitive. Who do we want to beat up? Let's beat up the pink girl. There we go. And we'll just set her to normal and everything. One thing before we go into game, you can actually set your variance, which is going to set up different game options. So you can end up setting your wins. And I'm going to set it to 1 win real quick, just so I can show it real quick, and then I'll talk about teams. Then you have garbage types, so you can end up making it so it drops colors or garbage. If you've ever played the other ones, you'll know what these settings are. I'm not going to go over them because that's a lot of settings, but yeah, it's a decent amount. I would like to see a little bit more, maybe some more customization on maybe the colors and the effects and stuff like that. But everything gameplay-wise, since the game is so simple, it seems to be covered. And then you also have the stage and stuff like that. So if you want to play a specific map or like the background, so the stage is going to be like the background, the weather, and it's going to have the weather effects. So you can have it sunny, cloudy, or rainy, and then you can also change the music if you want to do that. And one thing that I do want to mention about this is for some reason, whenever I change the music, it kind of changes the volume too. I don't know why it does that, but I apologize if that ended up bursting on the video. If you leave it on default, it will just pick random, which I kind of like it that way. Anyways, let's go ahead and begin and go into the game. Now, it's going to start right off the bat. So we're going to start in competitive right now. What are we doing? So basically, on the game, you're going to be dropping blobs, as it would suggest. You're raining blobs from the top of the screen. So you use your arrow keys or whatever you set it to end up moving up the blobs. You can use your A and B key to rotate them. And what you're trying to do is match up the special blobs, or basically you're trying to build up giant groups of blobs, I should say. And you're going to be matching the special ones. So the special ones are going to be the ones with the stars. And once you match up a group with 2, it'll go and boom, and then it'll send garbage to your opponent and give you points. And there's a bunch of different complicated ways to end up getting points, such as, going down fast by hitting down on your arrow keys / D-pad. It will end up sending them down quicker, which will end up racking up points because it's going quicker. The bigger the blob groups, the bigger the points. Also, the bigger your blob groups, the more garbage it's going to send to your opponent. Now, how do you win the competitive mode? Because this is pretty relaxing so far. How you win is you actually make it so that the enemy team can't have more blobs dropping from the top of the screen. And so you're trying to send them garbage, which will end up being these white blocks that can only be cleared by having matching ones next to it by the adjacent one. We'll get garbage sooner or later. Like, they have garbage on their screen, so you can check them out. I'm on the one on the left, by the way. And you're trying to make it so that basically they just lose. They can't drop any more, and so they can't make any more matches, which will end up making them lose the game. And right now we're going to get a warning because we're leveling up. So we can go ahead and drop some more. Now, how do you get rid of these garbage ones? Like I said, you end up getting matches next to it, and it will end up getting the adjacent ones as well. So like I was saying at the beginning of the video, if you've played stuff like Puyo, you're going to know exactly what's going on here. If you haven't, however, this might be an interesting one to look at. And oh my god, they are destroying me right now. Wow, I did not expect them to destroy me this bad. I didn't play very well either. I know that people are pretty good at games like this, and so they're going to be looking at me and being like, wow, this guy sucks, but whatever, I'm trying to record. And then basically, once the screen fills up, which will probably be me, yep, there we go, you end up losing, and then the other person wins. And that's pretty much the game, really. Now, I do want to also go into, I'm going to go ahead and hit start, and that'll bring us back to this screen. I also want to show that you can also play a more casual version of this, as in you can just play by yourself as well. And so there's essentially two game modes. There's the PvP mode, which is going to be, I guess, most of your, like, more complex kind of content. But then it also has a single player thing to where you're actually just building up levels. Now on the top, you'll actually end up seeing my rotation, where it's going to show what blobs are coming next. And then in the center, you're going to see my garbage count, which this doesn't have a garbage count. Instead, it has a star count. I don't know exactly what that is, but I haven't seen it do anything when you're in single player or whatever. And you can actually end up doing this with multiple players as well. If you set everyone to the same team, it'll just start up one of these casual kind of runs. And now what you're trying to do here is you're trying to match up as many points as possible. And you're just trying to get to level 100, which is going to be level 99 and then 100. And then you basically win the game, I guess. I think it goes forever and you just build up score, and that's kind of what you're doing. But the developers described it as you're trying to get to level 100, so that's what I'm saying. But yeah, basically, once you make matches, you get a certain amount of points. Once you get enough points, it'll actually end up just being like, hey, you reach level whatever. And it gets faster and faster the farther you go. And this is going to be more of your kind of score attack sort of mode. I guess tournament would be as well. I guess we can show that. And actually, no, I want to show the teams next, and then we'll go into tournament mode in my conclusion, since that's going to be more of your story mode. I will talk about that a little bit later, but yeah, basically this is going to be the single player, and this is what you're going to be doing. Now, one thing that's interesting about this is I want to kind of get there. I don't think I'm going to. I'm not really making groups very well, but we'll see how I do. I'm going to go ahead and match that up real quick. And one thing that's interesting is the higher the level you go, the image in the background actually changes, which is quite interesting. Which kind of brings me into the visuals of the game before we go into the team thing, which is going to be hectic as hell and hard to talk over. Basically, the visuals of the game are nice, I will say. I will say that they aren't amazing, as in, I do kind of wish they took a little bit more effort and maybe went with more of a vector type art style rather than the pixel art style, because the game does have, according to the store page and some of the content in game and stuff like that, it actually shows that they did have vector versions of the characters, and I felt that they looked better and it gave the game more of a polished feel to it. Whereas this, I guess that's going to be mostly kind of like opinions, but I kind of like the vector art style better. Not to say that this one is bad. I feel like the art style is simple and it works, but I do feel like the character, like up at the top, it shows that little character bouncing and stuff like that. I feel like it's distracting and just kind of feels arbitrary, like it doesn't need to be there. Now, going into a positive note, the sounds are actually pretty good. Like, the game's sound effects are perfect. They're exactly what you expect. They represent what you're going to be doing pretty perfectly. As in, you hear a certain sound when you're in these single player ones or you're in a PvP match, and it's like, oh, I heard a ding and it sent garbage, but that wasn't from my map, so yeah, that means garbage is on the way. And it makes it really easy, if you end up getting good at the game, to kind of figure out what's going on just based off of sound alone, not having to look at visuals, because the game does get quite hectic when we go into the team mode, which I should probably do now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start. I'm going to go ahead and new game, arcade, normal mode. Now, one thing about the music is that the music there's quite a few tracks. I'm going to go ahead and pick this character again because that is how I am. Oops, I clicked the wrong button. Apologies. Let's go ahead and go on blue team. We'll go ahead and make 2 teams, so I'll just make it so it's 8 players. But yeah, the game has a certain amount of tracks, and the music's quite nice. But I will say that the music does get repetitive if you end up sitting here just kind of listening to it or playing for a long period of time. And so what I ended up doing, oh, you can't remove NPCs there. What I ended up doing is ended up muting the game and then playing my own music in the background. I was playing this game while rendering, so it does run extremely well, by the way. So if you're looking for a game that can run in the background of pretty much anything, this is probably it. It is not intensive at all. Yeah, that's kind of my opinions on the music. The music's good, but yeah, another complaint about this UI thing is that there's no keyboard, or not keyboard, there's keyboard controls. There's no mouse support or anything like that. I feel like some of these menus would be easier to go through with the mouse, because I have to hit start and then hit A and stuff like that, and it gets complicated. And you also can't seem to remove CPU players after you add them, so you have to exit out and then go back in. It would be nice to have like a remove NPC option, and maybe there is, but it just doesn't tell me, and I don't know how to do it. So yeah. Anyway, so I set up 2 teams, so it's going to be the team stuff, just so I can show this, and I'm going to go into tournament mode after this. But essentially what this is going to be is it's going to be what your 1v1 would be in these types of games, to where you're sending garbage to the enemy team trying to get them out. However, there's going to be 4 people on each team in this one, and I have up to 8 players, so I can show it. Now, it's going to be really hectic, and this is going to be a complaint about the sound, because there's going to be tons of sound. Now, it's going to make the things really small. Now, I organized it. It sets up the characters on the board in the order that you select them in the map. So I ended up selecting one team first and then selecting the other one. That way, my team is up at the top, and then the enemy team is down at the bottom, or I guess competitive team. I don't really want to call them enemies because there's not really combat in this game. Yeah, so what this is going to do is it's going to make it so that all the points and garbage that we collect on one team will actually get sent to the other team. And so there's no like friendly fire or anything like that going on. And it's basically, you know, you'll kind of go and then your teammates will get taken down. You're like, oh no, you know, and then, yeah, that's kind of it. So my team is dominating. So I don't know what that was about. So yeah, one thing I have noticed with the AI is that the AI can be very, very sporadic at times. As in, sometimes they'll completely dominate, while in other times they're just confusingly dull. And I think that has to do with the AI controls for the team play. And I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it seems like every time I do team play, whatever team I'm on, unless I set them to harder, they always seem to win. And I don't know if that's because of my own skill level kind of pushing it over the edge, which I doubt, because I'm not very good at this game, or these types of games in general. But that could be kind of it. And now we just completely dominated the enemy team, and we won. Woo! That was it, and then it goes into round 2. So you can set the number of rounds. We can actually go back to look at that arcade mode and just go ahead and look at the options. But that was... Oops, I accidentally edited NPC. I just want to add a character real quick, just to look at the variant. So after that, you can also change the garbage type so it doesn't just make the white blocks. You can actually make it so it just makes a bunch of color blocks, and you can also make it so it drops only one color. So you can actually set that up quite differently. I like to play with it with the range of colors. I believe it was one of the Poyo modes on the GameCube version that I played that had this mode, and I really enjoyed playing that. That's going to be a lot more interesting because you do a lot more tactical stuff. Instead of just having garbage be like, oh, now you have to make all new blobs. It adds to your blobs and kind of screws up your combos and stuff like that. And you're like, oh my god, I got to real quickly kind of organize. So that's what I got. You can also set the number of wins you want up to 9. Then you can do release garbage. Now, what it does for the garbage stuff is it doesn't drop it until you've cleared at least 4 blobs. However, you can set it to anything if you want. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that gems are going to be, oh, we didn't see any gems. Okay, so gems are one special block to where if it hits a block, or a blob, sorry, I keep calling them blocks. If it hits a blob, it'll actually just clear everything of that color. I did forget to mention that. Now, one thing about these options is that if you set these options, these only work in arcade mode. So when you do the tournament mode, that's going to actually be your default mode. And I'm going to say that the tournament mode is probably going to be your primary quote-unquote skill mode when you're playing single player if you don't have people to play with. Now, if you want to play multiplayer, obviously you got to play arcade to select your characters and stuff like that. But if you play tournament mode, we'll go ahead and go into this one. It'll end up setting you up to NPCs kind of one by one in increasing difficulty. And if you fail, it actually lets you retry the one that you're on. So this is going to be kind of your game scale. Now let's go ahead and go into some of the negative stuff about this game, because I would say it is kind of perfect for what it is. Like I said with the art style, I feel like having a vector art style would have done the game a lot more justice, because it would have looked more interesting to more people. Because the pixel art style, no offense to developers that like it, and I rather do like it as well. Like, I like to make pixel art, it's fun. But I feel like their conversions from their other style into the pixel stuff wasn't exactly the right route to take with the visuals. I think it would have been really interesting to have that vector art style, and they would have been able to do more with it. And I feel like some sort of more animation in the background or something like that would actually make it more entertaining to watch for other players as well. However, the game's gameplay is perfectly what you'd expect. My complaint with it, with the gameplay wise, is that it doesn't do a lot differently. As in, if you've played the other one or other types of games in this genre, then you're not really going to find too much that's really different here, which is kind of disappointing. I was hoping for something more interesting. Now, the most interesting thing they have is the 8-player setup, which would be really, really cool if you can get local players. So if you can get local players, even if you've played the other ones, this would actually be a really good pick to pick up. However, on the other end, it doesn't really do much different. It keeps a lot of things meta, so that's kind of my conclusion on the game. It's a really good game. Like, it's extreme. Wow, I won that one quick. That was on easy, I guess. Right, next one. So my conclusion on the game is it's a really good game. Like, it's really, really good for what it's trying to be, but it's also not very complex, and it doesn't have a lot of content. It does get more colors into the game as well. So if I end up going backwards, we already showed the tournament mode, so whatever. That was basically all that was in tournament mode. So I'll go ahead and go into normal, and I'll go on and I'm going to variant. So you can actually have up to 6 colors and stuff like that. So it does get more complex. And as you go up in levels, it will end up adding up more like challenges and stuff like that. So it does get quite challenging. So if you like these types of puzzle games and these type of simple puzzle games, then there's definitely, you know, something to see here. It's a really, really solid game. Like, gameplay wise, it's great. But I will say that if you're not really into this genre, or you're looking for something different, like let's say you already have a game in this genre that you always play all the time, this might not be the one that you're quite looking for. Like, it's a solid entry, and it's nice to have another game in the genre to play, but it also doesn't deliver too much differently. The 8-player thing is about pretty much it, and everything else is quite meta, which is unfortunate. I really do like the game, and it's quite enjoyable, and if you're looking for a more casual experience, playing the single-player mode is quite fun, and it's quite enjoyable. It reminds me a lot of playing games like Tetris, and you're just kind of going, and then, you know, it's nice and relaxing, and then it gets more and more challenging, and then you start getting stressed out and stuff like that, and then that's just kind of the bane of puzzle games, but it's a really enjoyable game. So yeah, I guess that's my conclusion, is it's a good game. So your value proposition might be questionable depending on how much you actually like the genre, and if you're looking for something extremely new, which this game, while it introduces the multiple players and it's got some nice aesthetic choices, it's, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, yeah, if you like the game, then yeah. If not, you can pass. But yeah, anyways, this has been Michael, aka Spirit Shard, with Raining Blobs. Quite an interesting game into this genre, and it really revived something that I haven't played for a long time. I haven't played one of these types of games for a really, really long time. Anyways, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you see any other types of puzzle games or anything like that, or you want me to check out any other games, or maybe you've played these types of games, and you're like, oh yeah, this one looks really interesting, and you end up checking it out, make sure to give your opinions down in the bottom, in the comments and stuff like that, and I'll end up seeing you guys in the next video.